I grew up in a Christian family, fairly conservative in Minnesota, and my family, we went to church every Sunday, and I didn't love it. I didn't love youth group. I wasn't a huge youth group kid. My main things in my life at that, like from a kid to being a teenager, was school and sports kind of, and boys was in there as well, and friends was really important. But main was like school and sports, and go to youth group when you can. But I didn't love it. I had a foundational belief that God existed, but that's kind of all it was for me. And I would argue that with my friends. If people said that God didn't exist, I would say, well, yes, he does, don't be silly. But it didn't really go deeper for me. I didn't know what it meant to follow Jesus at all, really. And I would go to church and I would hear these messages about how this was supposed to change my life. And then I would sit there and think, I don't get this. Like, I must be missing something, or this just isn't real, because nothing's really happening. There's no real change. And so when I was 16, I tore my ACL, and I was out of sports for like 5.5 months, and then I did the rehab, and I tore it again. And so total, I was out for about a year of sports. And because that was my main thing, it was kind of this moment of re-evaluating things and being like, okay, what am I all about? Where do I get my identity? Like, I used to be on the field, a starter, and now I'm on the sidelines, and it's kind of in a sense of forgotten about, and it was just very hit me in that sense, and kind of started to get me thinking. But at the same time, it wasn't like making me run to Jesus or run to who God was. It was actually making me a little bit angry. Why would God allow this to happen when I was a nice enough person, what I thought? And so, but I still had these questions, and it was really the start. It was sparking these questions within me. And so when I was 18, I decided to go to Australia, as many of you guys would actually know that now I live in Australia, but to go to Australia, and kind of with this one purpose of, is God real? Like, if God is real, I want to know, I need to know. And then if God's real, then I'll give my life to this. But if he's not, then I'm not going to just waste my time. It's a bit silly to me. It seems foolish, actually. And so I went, make sure that I was saved, and then kind of carry on with my life. I was going to be an engineer, had all these plans to earn a lot of money. I was very, I wouldn't say a selfish person in terms of the world, but I was very self-focused, which basically is the meaning of selfishness. But not huge into volunteering, not huge into helping other people. Obviously, I knew those were good things because I was taught that. But did I really want to help people? No, because it was an inconvenience for me. And so when I came to do this discipleship school where I learned all about God and about God's character and about hearing God's voice, and it was actually like, we actually read the Bible like together, and we read it separately, or we were encouraged to read it separately. And so I started to read it by myself, and I started to be shocked what I found. Like, the words that Jesus says to his disciples and to us as a church, I had no idea that those were ever in there. All I ever got was those excerpts, those 2 verses that we studied in church. And so I started to really be concerned that my life looked nothing like this, like what Jesus was describing. That my whole life I considered myself a Christian. I'm from America, I'm a Christian home, Christian values, but my life didn't look anything like this. And Jesus was saying, whoever loses their life will gain it. And I'm just thinking, I don't want to lose my life. I don't want to do that. And he would say things like, it's easier for the camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And because I grew up with this mentality that money meant security, which was what you need in life, and this whole American dream mindset of make it on your own and earn as much money as you can, and then you'll be secure. And I had that so rooted in me, I didn't even realize it. And so I started learning all these things that God was saying, and they were confronting my very values that I grew up with. And this whole, and I felt like when I was learning to hear God's voice, felt like God was starting to speak to me, actually, about trusting him. And I knew that he wanted me to come and continue to serve and volunteer here in Australia, and I was adamant about not doing it. I did not want to do it. I did not want to be a volunteer. I didn't want to be poor. Okay? I don't know how many people just have an ambition to be poor, not me. I didn't want to, give my time. It just wasn't my heart. Like, my heart was still very much set on my own agenda. And it was really crazy, actually, how it happened. I can't necessarily put everything into words, but God just started to change my heart. Like, as I learned about his character, I learned that he is the most wise, the most loving, the most, all-knowing being in the world, that, and he's asking me to do this, and like, why wouldn't I? Actually, like, that would be foolish of me. Actually, and I was very logical. I am very logical minded, and I was like, well, I don't want to be a fool. So I guess I'll do this. I guess I'll do what God's telling me. And so after kind of that moment, or just like that understanding of wrestling with that, counting the cost of like, okay, this means giving up university for maybe forever or for a certain amount of time. And like, okay, God, you're worth it. If that's what you're saying, God, and you know me the best, and you actually have that for me, then that's what I'm going to do. And it's definitely, that was, the first part of my journey. And it's definitely there's been so many other things that God has been doing and has done, and it's been incredible following him. Incredible challenge as well, as God continues to bring things up or put mountains in front that he actually wants me to overcome. But I'm so grateful just for all that God's done, that he's been so patient with me and pursued after me, and I love following him.